Hi, everybody. This is Gino Vanelli. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
The views and opinions expressed on the following program are those of the producers and or the persons appearing on the program.
Today on Rainbow Country, in Hour 1, I chat with Justin Ling, author of the new book, Missing from the Village, the story of serial killer Bruce McArthur, the search for justice, and the system that failed Toronto's queer community. Plus, Rainbow Country contributor, musician and activist Anna Gutmanis shares her views on racial challenges in the LGBT community. And in Hour 2, music from LGBT recording artists, independent recording artists, plus voices that you know and love in classic disco, classic 80s, classic house. Stay tuned for Gay Talk Radio right here on Rainbow Country.
Hi, this is Emily Saliers from Indigo Girls.
Hey everyone, this is Chris Harder, porn star, burlesque performer, and the creator of Porn to Be a Star. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Hello and welcome to the very first episode of Rainbow Country in 2021. As I like to call it, a little gay radio show working to give voice to the LGBT community and beyond. As always, I am your tour guide through Rainbow Country. I'm producer and host, Mark Tara. By the way, Rainbow Country originates from CIUT-FM in Toronto, the sound of your city. And now proudly in syndication on Bombshell Radio, Love Your Indie, a 24/7 streaming outlet. And real music, real ideas, real people, CKUW-FM in Winnipeg. The Juice, CJUC-FM in Whitehorse. The mighty CKCU-FM in Ottawa. The voice of the Haliburton Highlands, Canoe FM, Haliburton, Ontario's cottage country. Located in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, CFCR-FM, Newfoundland's only alternative CHMR-FM in St. John's, Newfoundland. And the latest station to carry Rainbow Country, proudly broadcasting to Kingston, Ontario since 1922, CFRC-FM in Kingston. So whether you're listening in the Yukon, the Prairies, Ontario's cottage country, Southern Ontario, down to Buffalo, New York, the East Coast of Canada, in Newfoundland, or online, it's because of you. Downloading, streaming, but ultimately listening that has taken this little gay program and made it into a syndicated radio show and a #1 LGBT podcast. And last week, Rainbow Country was #2 on Podomatic's gay and lesbian chart. So today, in Hour 1, I'm joined by investigative journalist and author Justin Ling to talk about his new book, Missing from the Village, the story of serial killer Bruce McArthur, the search for justice, and the system that failed Toronto's queer community. And in Hour 2, music from LGBT artists, independent artists, plus voices that you know and love in classic disco, classic 80s, classic house. But up first, Rainbow Country contributor, musician, and activist Anna Gutmanis shares her views on racial challenges in the LGBT community.
In one of my first contributions to Rainbow Country, I called for the LGBTQ community in the GTA, and pretty much everywhere else, to actively combat anti-Black and anti-Indigenous racism. But does that mean that only Black and Indigenous queers have to navigate racism from white queers? Sadly, no. The community has a long way to go. For starters, a 2019 article in Journal of Lesbian Studies describes the ways in which queer women of South Asian descent experience racial discrimination in the Toronto LGBTQ community. Author Sonali Patel writes that queer women's spaces are led by white feminists who do not understand the unique challenges faced by queer South Asian women, QSAW for short. QSAW are also not well represented in spaces and organizations for queer women of color. Notably, 3/4 of study participants who had dated white women stated that they would not do so again because the white women lacked cultural competency and the willingness to learn. The participants also speak of broad dissatisfaction, not only with the gay village, bars, and pride, but also with queer events at universities and corporate spaces that tout diversity. Patel notes that the results of her recent study are in line with studies done in the U.S. A 2019 article on Global News Online speaks about the anti-Asian racism that prevails in the queer men's dating community. Author Arti Patel writes about the no black, no Asian demand commonly seen on gay dating apps. A participant interviewed by Patel also notes the so-called flip side, which is the fetishization of Asians. Malin Evans Sinclair, a black gay man who works as an inclusion, diversity, and equity facilitator, notes the dehumanization inherent in the use of certain phrases that I will not repeat here. Phrases which also add an element of, quote, assumed femininity, unquote, in the East Asian dating partner being sought. All of this predated the pandemic, which of course has seen overt acts of anti-Asian racism frequently make the headlines. We can safely assume that the LGBTQ community is seeing a similar rise in acts of overt anti-Asian racism. We can take one particular suggestion by Sonali Patel to heart by increasing the accountability of white LGBTQ individuals. Now is the time. Building back better means tearing down the racism in our queer community and rebuilding our structures in a way that truly honors and includes everyone. This is singer-songwriter and activist Anna Gutmanis for Rainbow Country. You can reach me at annagutmanis.com.
Bill 7, to ban discrimination in employment, government services, and housing, based on a person's sexual orientation, was up for a vote at Queen's Park. Most NDP and Liberal MPPs supported the bill, but without some progressive Conservative legislators' backing, a divisive split could rack the province. 4 PCs decided to break party ranks to vote with their conscience and support Bill 7. Cabinet Minister and MPP Dennis Timbrell did it to show solidarity for his beloved brother, the well-known drag queen Rusty Ryan. And for me, a gay politician who was not yet out, I had to take a stand. We were known as the Gang of Four. I'm former Cabinet Minister and MPP Phil Gillies. The date, December 2nd, 1986, when LGBT rights came to Ontario.
Hi, this is Mo Berg from The Pursuit of Happiness, and you're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
The tragic and resonant story of the disappearance of 8 men, the victims of serial killer Bruce McArthur, from Toronto's queer community, and the failures of the social and political systems which allowed the cases to go unsolved for so long. Up next, investigative journalist Justin Ling joins me in conversation to talk about his new book, Missing from the Village.
Author's note. There are 2 words in this book that may be controversial. The first word is the word queer. While once it was exclusively a slur the word has been reappropriated to serve a very important function. As the acronym used to represent the broader spectrum of sexuality has expanded, from the simple LGBT to the more complicated LGBTQIA2+, or lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, queer, questioning, intersex, asexual, two-spirit, and everything else, many have, rightly, pointed to how fraught it can be to encapsulate the incredibly diverse range of non-heterosexual and non-cisgender identities into a handful of letters. It feels that no matter how many letters are added, entire parts of that spectrum are captured under broad catch-alls like trans, or must otherwise be happy being relegated to the plus sign. I have opted to simply use the word queer to represent every point along that spectrum. There are drawbacks in trying to use a single word, much less a word that once went hand in hand with discrimination and violence. There is beauty in that, too. As a word we have reclaimed, we can define it as widely and as expansively as we choose. A word that used to mean exclusion can be inverted to be inclusive. The second word that will appear throughout the book, perhaps to some chagrin, is community. There is a very good argument to be made that even if there are communities of queer people, there is no queer community. I think this book is evidence of what a broader queer community looks like and where exactly that lack of community is so painfully evident. To that end, the use of those two words together, queer community, may be more aspirational than actual. A community is not a utopia, but it should be a space where outside prejudices are not welcome and where solidarity is a default. Unfortunately, that is not yet a reality. This book sits at an uneasy crossroads of these problems. I am a journalist, but I am also a member of that community. This book is not an academic work. It is not an activist manifesto, nor is it a true crime book that spectates from afar. This book is an investigation of a tragedy of enormous proportions, which works to explain why it happened and to learn lessons on how to stop it from happening again.
Justin Ling, hi. How are you?
Good. I'm doing all right.
I always say this to my guests, but thank you so much for being here to have your voice, your story be heard by the LGBT community and beyond. So thank you for that, especially when it comes to your new book, Missing from the Village, the story of serial killer Bruce McArthur, the search for justice, and the system that failed Toronto's queer community. At the time of our recording this interview, your book got as high as number 2. It may have gotten to number 1. I don't know. But I saw it was number 2 on Amazon.ca's gay and lesbian philosophy chart.
Yeah.
How do you feel having a top 2 hit?
I mean, great. I mean, the book, I think, is doing quite well. I'm not sure that I knew that it was a philosophy book before Amazon told me, but hey, listen, I'll take what I can get. I think there's certainly some philosophy in it. So, you know, I'm just happy that people are reading it and seeming to appreciate it.
I often ask this question to creatives when they come on to talk about their project. You are the author of Missing from the Village. For you, this book is about what?
Yeah, the book is to some degree about, you know, my involvement in this story for the last 5 years, essentially. But I think in many respects, it's supposed to be a book about a community that was targeted and that was failed pretty extensively, and sort of what needs to happen to make sure that never occurs again, right? So, you know, the book's trying to do a lot of things, to be totally honest. You know, the book's, like I said, a little bit about my experience. You know, it is kind of a true crime book. It's a book about a serial killer. It's a book about, you know, the murders of 8 men. But it's also, in many respects, not and I tried quite hard not to write a true crime book. True crime is a genre I don't really like all that much. I have a lot of misgivings about. And, ultimately, I'm a journalist. So this book ended up being really focused on systems and policies and governments and policing and how we really, deal with policing and deal with queer communities. So it's broad, to say the least.
Missing from the Village, the story of serial killer Bruce McArthur, the search for justice, and the system that failed Toronto's queer community. That's quite the title. Why this?
Yeah, I usually just say Missing from the Village.
Yeah.
I find everything else is just a subtitle, I think.
Why this particular title?
Yeah, it's funny. I think Missing from the Village was sort of a working title for a long time. And I always imagined we'd pick something else, to be honest. But the more I sort of chatted about it, the more I realized it's sort of the very appropriate title. I mean, this book is about 8 men who disappeared from Toronto's queer community over 7 years. And in a lot of respects, the word missing came up a lot. I think even more than you would have expected it to. I talked to a lot of people who, were close to these men who had to deal with not just them going missing and dealing with the missing persons investigation multiple times over the years, but then sort of dealing with just missing them daily, right? And for years, and missing answers and missing the sort of, if not closure, at least finality of knowing what had happened. For years, police, I think, suggested, and the media suggested, and the city at large suggested, that maybe they weren't really missing. Maybe these men weren't, in fact, missing. Maybe they left. Maybe they went somewhere else of their own accord. And I think really focusing on that word missing hits home, hopefully, in a lot of respects, just how kind of torturous those years were for a lot of these people. And, even in the prologue, in the preface, I sort of grapple with the word community and village and, what the LGBTQ community really is and what it means and what it was promised to do, and whether or not it really lived up to those promises of community, of sort of collective defense, of looking out for one another. And that's really what the village was supposed to be in a lot of respects. So, I guess if you really want to drill down into it, there's a lot of philosophy behind even just the title.
Missing from the Village, the story of serial killer Bruce McArthur. Who was or is Bruce McArthur?
Yeah, so Bruce McArthur is, he's locked up and right now still alive, but who knows for how much longer. Bruce McArthur, for years was in and of the queer community. He came out later in life, moved to not far from the gay village in Toronto, and spent a lot of his time hanging out at the coffee shops and the bars, the restaurants on Church Street in the Church and Wellesley Village. And in some respects was as nondescript and unassuming as anyone you'd walk past on the street. He had friends, he had a partner. He was, if not well known, at least recognizable, just one of the faces, in the community. But there was obviously something quite different there. In 2001, he attacked a man he knew, an actor, in his apartment on Halloween evening. He had attacked several men, while hooking up with them in his home, in his van, over the years, and ultimately in 2010, kidnapped and murdered his first victim, ultimately killing, 8 men and eluding police for, 7 years. even as people in the community were pointing the finger at him and suggesting that he could be involved or at least have information that, might explain these disappearances, he was, even as he was abducting these men and committing these crimes, a man accused him of assault, and he ultimately was investigated, interrogated by police and released. So, the book is to some degree about him. I mean, not to a great degree. It's a little bit about his backstory and about the things he did, but ultimately the book's about a lot more and spends much more time looking at the community, the village, the police, the city than it does looking at him. But unfortunately, thanks to what he did, he's sort of at the center of this whole story.
So between 2010, 2017, a series of men went missing from Toronto's gay village, like you were just talking about. They were South Asian, Middle Eastern, Caucasian, 8 victims. But it wasn't until Andrew Kinsman went missing that everything came to a head. Was it a note, a message written down by Andrew Kinsman that broke everything open? Is that accurate to say?
Yeah, it is. It's an interesting, question about why it took Andrew Kinsman for this case to get solved. I think many people, understandably, will say it took a white man to go missing for Toronto police to care. So just to really quickly sketch out, what sort of happened here. Between 2010 and 2012, three men went missing, South Asian, like you said, or Middle Eastern. Police started an investigation that ultimately went nowhere and shut it down. Even after that, men continued to go missing. There was, a refugee from the Middle East. There was a Sri Lankan failed refugee claimant. Unfortunately, there was a white man who was, housing insecure and street involved. There was a Turkish man who disappeared, and unfortunately, the investigation didn't link it back to those other cases. So you had this really disparate, group of men. Many of them racialized, but not all of them. Some of them, marginalized or, living without immigration status or dealing with addiction or drug use. Some of them not. Some of them, with good, stable careers, wide groups of friends, So each of these men had a very, very different life. There was commonalities for sure. But looking back at all of them, it's frustrating to realize how many opportunities police had to tie them all together. And it's frustrating to realize that the friends and family of these men did spend a lot of time advocating for police to take their disappearances seriously, to really run a fulsome investigation, to, knock down doors if need be, to figure out what had happened to them. And unfortunately, in many respects, police either didn't do that or didn't do enough of it, that, obviously to catch, the man who had taken them. When Andrew Kinsman disappeared, I don't believe that police were gearing up to take it as seriously as they ought to have, had it not been for Andrew Kinsman's friends and family. They mobilized with incredible speed and purpose to, and I think knowing full well the ways in which those previous investigations had failed, Andrew's friends would not take no for an answer. They blanketed.
But didn't Andrew also work at Toronto People with AIDS Foundation, I believe, or
That's
another?
Right. Yeah, and a lot of his colleagues were instrumental in, standing up an organization, of doing those postering campaigns, of, reaching out to the media, of, organizing on Facebook, of searching parks and ravines. There was a philosophy from those friends and family and colleagues that they were going to put posters up on every city block. And then every time one poster came down, there was a poster missing or was peeled off or blown away, that 2 went up to replace it. Thousands and thousands of posters over the course of 6 or 7 months blanketed the city and really forced the city to realize the men were going missing and had not been found. I've had an officer who worked on this case tell me point blank, listen, would we have investigated this seriously? Yes, even without any sort of pressure. But did that pressure force us to take it seriously faster and to get on this with more urgency and speed? Yes. And thanks to that speed that was brought on by his friends and family and advocates, police managed to get crucial security footage that may have been lost if they had waited. And ultimately, the note you mentioned earlier, Andrew Kinsman had written a note in his calendar about a 3 p.m. coffee date with a man named Bruce. And it was that note that gave them a really narrow window to go review that security footage to find out, the exact time and to find out when he had left and to identify the vehicle he got in. And the ID on that vehicle is ultimately what led them to Bruce McArthur, and which is what led to a massive surveillance investigation that ultimately led to his arrest. So, I'm not exaggerating when I say that the folks around Andrew Kinsman, those who knew him best, were probably, they don't get exclusive credit, but get an enormous amount of credit for catching this guy.
Yeah. Missing from the Village, the system that failed Toronto's queer community. Was that system the police system?
I think it's wider than that. I mean, I think policing doesn't exist sort of detached from a city. It's not some sort of naturally occurring regime, right? We create policing through municipal, provincial, federal legislation, through the criminal code, through city budgets. We decide what policing is, right? I mean, in many respects, policing is also just the officers who work there, which is to some degree beyond our control. But, the system was designed to not only protect everybody equally, but to offer greater protection for those who need greater protection, right? And in many respects, that's the queer community. And I think it's fair to say that protection has often been deficient. It's not actually matched to the level of threat facing the community. It's actually been less than what other communities get. Consistently, Toronto police have failed to do enough to make sure that marginalized individuals, that racialized men, that trans people, especially trans women of color, sex workers, drug users, street-involved people, the city and the police have done an inadequate job of protecting those people. Yet, even at the same time as police have been negligent in their duty to protect those folks, police have been there at every corner to police them. Toronto police are constantly, and have constantly been for decades, over-prosecuting, overcharging for, vagrancy laws, for drug laws, for sex work laws in and around the village. That includes morality policing. Many people might think back to the bathhouse raids, but in many respects, the bathhouse raids have continued to, in a different, shape, to present day. I mean, the most recent actual bathhouse raid was in 2000 against a party for lesbian women.
Yeah, Pussy Palace.
Exactly, the Pussy Palace raids. There were still arrests going on in parks across Toronto, even as these men were going missing. So to be a queer person in Toronto means there's a pretty good chance that if you are murdered or if you go missing, your case will be less likely to get solved than a straight person, yet you're more likely to be targeted or charged for, non-violent offenses. So that's a really weird disconnect. That's a really frustrating disconnect. And a system that produces that result is a system that's not working. If you go back and do some of the math on violence against queer people in Toronto, there were years when roughly a fifth or a quarter of all homicides in the city of Toronto were targeting gay men or trans women. They went unsolved at a significantly higher rate than the city average. And yet, despite that, police were kicking down doors and arresting men in their own homes for prostitution. How does that system comport with what we keep saying the system ought to be doing, which is protecting the people who need it the most? It doesn't work. And I think this case is emblematic of the fact that in many respects, things haven't changed since the 1970s or 1980s.
Justin Ling, well said. On that note, let's take a break. We will be right back.
Hi, I'm Garrett Conley, author of Boy Erased, a memoir. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
So Rainbow Country has been going strong now for 5 seasons. And over the course of the last few years, I've had on some interesting guests with powerful projects that they've come on to this little gay show to share with us. And I thought I'd take this time to spotlight some of those projects right now. So let's start off with music. And this guest has not been on the show. I would love her to be on the show, but she has not. It's a record that I have been listening to over the last little while. Kylie Minogue, and her current record is called Disco. If you want a fun record to put on to just to dance, or maybe you're doing housework, or maybe you just want to lighten the mood and lift your spirits, it's a good, fun dance record. Disco, Kylie Minogue. I highly recommend. And by the way, she just made UK history by being the first female artist to have 5 consecutive #1 records over the course of 5 decades. Well done. Okay, for all you book fans, here's one for you. Outrageous Misfits. Female impersonator Craig Russell and his wife, Lori Russell Eady, from author Brian Bradley. Brian Bradley will be a guest on Rainbow Country in January 2021. Here's a synopsis of the book. Craig Russell was an internationally admired entertainer and actor, known for his outrageous impersonations of some of Hollywood's greatest female celebrities like Mae West, Barbara Streisand, Bette Midler, Carol Channing, and Judy Garland, just to name a few. Lori Russell Eady, a shy theater lover, was Craig's #1 fan and eventually his wife. 5 stars on Amazon.ca, where it's available. Again, the title, Outrageous Misfits by Brian Bradley.
My name is Charles Officer, and I'm the writer and director of Invisible Essence, The Little Prince. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Justin Ling, you are a journalist. Your writings have been featured in Vice News, BuzzFeed, the Globe and Mail, the National Post, just to name a few. I'm curious to know how did you get turned on to journalism in the first place? How did that happen for you?
I mean, frankly, there was not a whole lot of other paths ahead of me. I mean, coming out of high school, I was terrible at everything from math, sciences. The only thing I was good at was history and English. My first job out of high school was at a local radio station doing news. And I really don't think there was a lot of other options. There was not a lot of other options ahead of me that I wanted to pursue. So it was just sort of a natural fit. And frankly, I think I'm pretty good at it. So I feel like I might stick with it.
Did you always want to be a writer?
I think so. I mean, it's tough because, thinking back about it, I don't know that I always knew what I wanted to write. Yes, it was the thing I was good at. I mean, I could have tried to be an engineer like my father wanted me to, but I don't think I was going to ever be able to do that math. So writing is the one thing I'm good at. And I think over the years I've oscillated a bit about what I like writing about and where I feel like I make the most impact. But I think this book was maybe the sort of culmination of that. I mean, I felt, good about pursuing, exactly, what I ended up getting at with this book. And I think unfortunately a lot of, folks in this industry don't spend as much time on topics that, about how our systems fail people who they were designed to protect. Unfortunately, I think there's still a lot of folks in my industry who, spend a lot of time, writing about the sport that is politics and not enough about the ways in which politics actually impact regular people.
So your reporting tends to focus on stories and issues that are undercovered and misunderstood. You were working on the Bruce McArthur case for what, like 5 years?
Yeah, 5 years.
How did this story come to your attention then?
So in 2013, Toronto police made the announcement that they suspected that these 3 missing persons cases, at that point there were only 3, were in fact connected, and that based on the profile of the 3 missing men, there were so many similarities that police suspected a link. They didn't say the word serial killer. They didn't even suggest there was foul play. They just said they suggested there was a connection there. And I remember at that time, like I think almost everybody in the queer community in Toronto and abroad, because at that point I was living in Montreal, but was traveling pretty frequently to Toronto. I think everybody had that knee-jerk reaction of there's a serial killer in the village. And I think everybody just was waiting for there to be another victim. And unfortunately, that sort of concern petered out. It just sort of dissipated. There was no follow-up by the media. There was no follow-up by the cops. They, in fact, shut that investigation down just about 6 months after they made the announcement, maybe 7 months. There was no pressure from the community for answers. There was, going forward, beyond the friends and family of the missing men, there was no consistent pressure being put on by the community at large for the police to continue this investigation. So they shut it down. And nobody followed up. And there was no sort of continued application to try and get, answers or resolution. So when, years on from that, and admittedly, I was, I think in many respects, just as guilty. I forgot about it like many other people did. But in 2015, it was actually during a federal election that I was covering. I had a down day, just a quiet day where nothing was really happening. And, the memory of that story popped into my head just like a lightning bolt. And, I remember with great clarity the exact day that this happened. I just sat there at my desk thinking, how is it that I've not heard anything else about this? And, a Google search confirmed that there had been nothing. There had been no update, no follow-up, no continued pressure. And something about that just struck me as incredibly wrong because, like I said, we knew there was a serial killer. It didn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that, 3 men of that profile going missing over a 2-year period from the same geographic area and having, no evidence of what had happened to them, no credit card, transaction, no phone call, no nothing, no spotting, no sighting of them. For 3, 4, 5 years, that was the sign for me that there was a serial killer and everyone had forgotten about it. So it was, in that moment, I decided I was going to revisit it. And, I spent the next 2 years, I wish I had done it, frankly, quicker. But over the next 2 years, I spent a lot of time following up with those friends and family, looking through other missing persons reports for possibly connected cases, looking at unsolved homicides, looking at serial killers who had been caught or suspected over the years, and basically haranguing the police for some level of update.
Why do you think Toronto police didn't pay more attention to those voices from the village saying that there could potentially be a serial killer targeting Toronto's gay village?
It's tough because in some respects they did. In many other respects they didn't. So one thing that I really gained an appreciation of during working on this book was the degree to which the police were willing to explain away these disappearances over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's start at the very beginning. When these men went missing, there was the requisite sort of base level missing persons investigation, the credit card checks, the checks on their social media, their email, so on and so forth. When nothing turned up, police moved on. And there unfortunately was just not an adequate follow-up after the fact. When in 2012 came around, Toronto police set up a sizable investigation with probably about a dozen officers and a dedicated budget and a dedicated task force to investigate one of the disappearances, thanks to a tip that had come in from Europe about an online cannibalism ring. It ended up being nonsense, as we know. But in that task force, a couple of very smart and enterprising investigators found connections between that one missing persons case and the two others. And in that moment, linked those three missing persons cases for the first time. That was really great work. That was really smart, good detective work. Unfortunately, the Toronto Police Service wasn't terribly interested in three missing persons cases that could be connected. Once they realized that cannibalism ring was all nonsense, they significantly scaled down the investigation. Mm. The officers that remained did a really good job. They brought Bruce McArthur in. They found him. They investigated him. They listened to the community members who said, "Go talk to Bruce McArthur." Mm. Unfortunately, they just didn't. I believe they didn't have the resources or the time or the staff to adequately vet, what his statements were, and to spend that time really tearing apart his story and other people's stories as well, and really getting to the heart of the matter. Unfortunately, about, like I said, 7 months after that interview, the whole task force was shut down. Mm-hmm. And when I was following up years later, I kept getting this idea that maybe from the police that maybe they vacated their lives. Maybe they packed their suit. The idea was maybe they went back home, or because they were queer or in the closet or whatever, they just took off and they couldn't stand to live this life anymore.
Right.
But it was so absurd. They didn't pack a suitcase. They didn't, bring their passport. They didn't withdraw a bunch of money. They didn't bring their credit card. There was no evidence of the idea that these men had just fled. And if they had fled to where? And this is, I think, where, a fundamental disconnect happened between the police and the community. The community would tell you, we don't do that. Why would I come? Hypothetically, I am, a refugee from Afghanistan. I fled civil war. I fled a country where, unfortunately, it's still illegal to be gay, and where that punishment, either by the state or by individuals, still frequently happens. I've come to Canada, and I spend my time, my evenings, my weekends in the gay village where I'm accepted, at least to some degree, and where I feel at home. Why would I leave that behind and take nothing with me? It just didn't make sense, right? So when I really started butting my head up against that assumption, I think I realized that there was just this latent belief that this was normal for queer people, especially, immigrant queer people. And that, without continued pressure, that assumption would just sort of stand. And unfortunately, that assumption proved really deadly, to be honest. And it took more men disappearing for them to be snapped out of it.
The lead investigator for the Bruce McArthur case was Hank Exinga. Did you interview him?
Yeah, I've spoken to Hank many times over the years.
Mm-hmm. And how did you find him forthcoming and stuff?
Yeah, I think I deal with a lot of cops, especially in this country, and there is a culture of conservatism in Canadian policing that believes you should say as little as possible, deal with the public rarely, if ever, speak to journalists only as a last resort. And I think it's really counterproductive, to be honest. And I get the strong impression, and I think I know that Hank, I'm not even sure I'm using his first name. We're not on a first name basis, but that's fine. Detective Sergeant Nsinga, Inspector Nsinga now, believes that a level of relations with the public and the media and the community is productive. And I think he showed that through this investigation. He held regular briefings to update, this city on what was happening. He did call back journalists personally to tell them what was going on. He did try and recognize, and I think this is really crucial, he tried to recognize where the investigation was deficient and it wasn't adequate, which is more than I can say for the chief, who spent years over this investigation gaslighting the community and trying to put responsibility back on them, which is, I still think, one of the most offensive things about the reaction to the fallout of this case. But Inspector Nsinga, I think, is one of those cops who are pushing policing in the right direction. I won't say everything he's done is perfect; that would be foolhardy. But I think there's very good things at play there, and it wasn't just him. His number two, Detective Dave Dickinson, also I think was a driving force behind that. Really did. He was a little bit less in the spotlight, but I think really did a great job of building relationships with folks in the community and folks most impacted by this story, and did so in a very, I think, smart way. Again, there was failures left, right, and center here, but there are good aspects, and there are good individuals who worked on this case.
And friends and family of the victims, did you talk to those people as well?
Yeah, my philosophy in working on this story and working on this book was not to push, right? Mm-hmm. Was not to arm twist people into talking to me. My belief is that there are people involved in this story who had to live with it. Are still living with it in many respects, but had to live with the constant waves of interest. So, Skandaraj Navaratnam disappeared in 2010. His friends, and family organized around his disappearance, put up posters, did searches through parks and ravines, pressured the cops, went to the media, did interviews, only to do it all again in 2013 when the cases were connected. Only to do it all again in 2017 when Andrew Kinsman went missing and the investigation started up all over again. Only to do it all over again in 2018 when Bruce McArthur was arrested. Only to do it all over again at the trial. And in many ways, they're just constantly reliving it and are still getting inundated with demands and requests from film producers and, other folks who want to write books and so on and so forth. My philosophy was, I'm not going to keep pressuring those people. If they want to talk to me, I'm here and I would love to chat. If they don't, I'm not going to keep bothering them. The benefit that I'll get or the public will get from understanding their story is not worth it if they have to go through hell to get there. So I did speak. I spoke to a huge number of friends and family and colleagues and associates and so on of these missing men. But there's many people I very conspicuously didn't talk to, and I'm frankly fine with that. I know that there are still a lot of, like I said, producers and writers and so on who are banging down doors to try to get these people to talk. And frankly, I think it's disgusting. I think it's really unfortunate that many of these people see their jobs as more important than these victims' mental well-being.
Right. Great point. You you wrote this book over the course of 5 years? How?
No, I never imagined this being a book, frankly. I was always writing this as news stories, right? I ended up working on a podcast sort of around this case, not directly about it, but tangentially about it for the CBC. Yeah. This book has been the product of about, I think, 2-3 years of work, but obviously situated in 5-6 years of research and investigation.
How has this case, this story, impacted you?
Yeah, I get asked this a lot, and and frankly, this is my job. I think I have good coping mechanisms to deal with. This is not the first tragic or grisly story I've handled. I don't, I always tell other journalists that you have to be very careful. You have to be checking in with yourself and making sure that, you're taking the appropriate precautions to make sure that your own mental health is not, is safe through working through these stories, to make sure that you don't end up with, trauma stemming from, this sort of work. But I'm fine. I mean, frankly, I think when I get that question, my impulse is always to deflect it and say, listen, people love asking me that, but there are dozens, if not hundreds of people who have been horribly impacted by this story, who still, can't go to work, who still have insomnia, who wake up terrified in the middle of the evening, who have irrational fear, who are dealing with trauma, who are, still suffering the consequences of, this investigation, these cases, and these crimes. So, I think those, that's where the attention deserves to lie, and figuring out a way in which to help those people, I think, is still kind of core to what we should be talking about in the story, because there's still a lot of damage being done. In some cases, the media and the public is exacerbating it. But in many respects, we don't, as much as we like to tell ourselves that we have these great victim services, we don't. There's not the supports that we expect for victims of crime and for their friends and family.
So, Missing from the Village, when people read this book, and they should, what do you want your readers to come away with?
I think I want them to come away, well, with a few things, I suppose, with the understanding that a lot of things about policing as a system are still really broken. The recent calls to defund the police, I think, are a great invitation to start engaging with some of those deficiencies, right? I mean, we're now having a real, honest conversation about where our money goes. Is it wise for us to keep spending money on arresting sex workers and, busting drug users and arresting men cruising in parks, especially when they're not doing their damn job when it comes to homicide investigations or missing persons investigations? If there had been greater scrutiny years ago about the ways in which Toronto police were failing missing persons investigations, maybe this never would have happened. I think what I want people to take away from this is that these problems are not unsolvable. They're not intractable. We can fix these things. We have a roadmap. We've had roadmaps for decades about what it means to seriously investigate a missing persons case, about what it means to, actually work with communities who are marginalized or forgotten, as opposed to over-policing them. We know what it means to, we learned a lot of these lessons after Robert Pickton was arrested, 20 years ago, and we ignored them. These things can get solved, and kind of secondary to that, I think I want people to understand that there is harm being done sometimes when we engage with true crime and entertainment. This book I think it is going to get lumped in with true crime books, but in many respects it's not. In many respects I hate the true crime industry because it tells people that they have a right to these victim stories when in almost every respect they don't. And real damage gets done. There's a friend of one of the victims who went down to do laundry one day and found a team of online sleuths looking through her laundry room for clues. There are people who are getting inundated with messages and Facebook messages and emails and calls and texts, demanding information about what their friend did. In some cases, people have developed theories that the victims were in fact in on it, or one or more of them were actually working with Bruce McArthur. And this stuff has consequences. This stuff, hurts people. And I think as long as we keep churning out true crime as an entertainment or a sport or pop culture, we're doing a real disservice to these people and victimizing them all over again. And nobody seems to care all that much about it.
Justin Ling, well said, powerful words. Thanks for your time. Thanks for being on the show.
Absolutely. Cheers.
While it is critical we hold the police as an institution accountable for the failures that led to this story, it is also important we recognize the hard work and dedication of the officers assigned to these cases. Figuring out how to untangle the complicated relationship between queer people and the police, and indeed how we improve policing more broadly, involves recognizing where police get it right. In my years of working on this story, I have found a real desire on the part of those officers to engage in critical self-reflection. So while this book is dedicated to the officers and investigators, I also hope it sparks more introspection about their relationship with the queer community. And finally, this book is dedicated to the queer community itself, a community that has been ridiculed, gaslighted, surveilled, targeted, and killed. It has been marginalized by police, government, and society at large. But through it all, it has survived with a culture and community that exists despite attempts to extinguish its uniqueness and in spite of those attempts.
Missing from the Village is available wherever you get your favorite books. And for more on investigative journalist and author Justin Ling, justinling.ca. Taking us to Hour 2 of Rainbow Country, Sea, Sex, and Sun, Serge Ginsburg.
soleil au zénith. 20 ans, 18. 17 ans, à la limite. Toi, petite, tu es de la dynamite.
Hi, my name is Joanne Vanicola, and I'm an actor and a writer, and I was first on Rainbow Country with Mark Tara on discussing the massacre at Pulse Club in Orlando. I realized how important it was for our community to have a radio station, specifically for our issues, to talk about people in the LGBTQ community and to provide an outlet for our stories, to discuss our politics, culture, and give voice to the issues that matter to us. And of course our artists and the things that we do globally and talk about culture. And without people like McArthur providing a space for this with a radio show like this, then we wouldn't have that voice. So support, tune in. Thank you.
Hi, this is Police Constable Danielle Botno, also known as LGBT Cop, and you're listening to Rainbow Country with McArthur.
This is Hour 2 of Rainbow Country, where I feature music from LGBT recording artists, independent recording artists, plus voices that you know and love in classic disco, classic 80s, classic house. So if you stay with me, if you stick with me, I hope you think I'm bringing you music worth hearing. Starting us off, a 3-song Canadian 80s set. Living on video. Living on video. Stop. We just heard Let It Go, Luba. Before that, Don't Walk Past, Blue Peter. And starting off that 3-song Canadian 80s set, Living on Video, TransX. You can stream these artists, Luba, Blue Peter, TransX, on Spotify. Up next, a 3-song Parachute Club set.
Boys Club, membership restricted to the Boys Club. Boys Club, women are not welcome to the Boys Club. Boys Club, fratricidal bandom in the Boys Club. Boys Club, you know they're gonna kill us, it's a Boys Club. Boys Club, ladies unskirted, not welcome, Boys Club. Boys Club, are you gonna take it, it's a Boys Club. You take Poland, I'll take El Salvador. You pretend you're making peace, but what you're really making is war. You make it. Kiss the fallen ladder, catch it before it hits the ground. You're bargaining for power, we're bargaining for safe and sound. You got your boys and toys making noise, trying to blow us up. Political fame is the name of the game. They wanna go right to the top. You read it in your history books and you've seen it all before. We had our way, we get it right. We'd end this bloody war. You've been shaking it, faking it, and taking us for a walk. When's it gonna, when's it gonna, when's it gonna stop? Come on, you guys, give us a break. I can't deal with this anymore. Boys Club, membership restricted to the Boys Club. Boys Club, suicidal
We just heard Sexual Intelligence. Before that, Slip Away. And starting off that 3-song Parachute Club set, Boys Club. They had 3 top 40 hits, Rise Up, At the Feet of the Moon, and Love is Fire. Parachute Club was known for being one of the first mainstream pop acts in Canada to integrate world music influences like reggae and soca into their sound. You can stream Parachute Club on Spotify. Up next, a 3-song electronic set.
Dance right through our hands, lost like a treasure, and we might never get another chance. Fire, feel it touch you, move you in a place you've never been. I wanna take you where you feel the beat, you feel the heat against your skin. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Ready or not, here we come. You're young only once. Won't stop till we burn out the sun. Till we burn out the sun. Out into the open, right along with me into the waves. Love is an ocean, big enough to carry us and give us our escape. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Ready or not, here we come. You're young only once. Won't stop till we burn out the sun. Second best. I want your love. Give me your love. That's how I feel, and I want it to be real. I want your love. Give me your love, girl. I need your touch. I owe you so much. A-E-A-E-I-O-U. I sometimes cry. A-E-A-E-I-O-U. I sometimes cry.
We just heard IOU. Before that, Burn Out the Sun. And starting off that 3-song electronic set, Pool Party. Those 3 tracks from indie artist Santino. And for all things Santino, music by Santino.com. Up next, a 3-song Canadian rock set.
From
Sometimes these thoughts don't stop.
We just heard Heavy from Pterodactyl Problems. That track is off of their current record, Esoteric Hobbies. Before that, I'm Beggin' from Queens and Kings. And starting off that 3-song Canadian rock set, Waiting from Running Violet. You can find those groups, Pterodactyl Problems, Queens and Kings, and Running Violet, on Spotify. Up next, a 2-song folk set.
Near the town of Chester on Nova Scotia's shore, a treasure once was buried, boys, many years before. Beneath the towering oak trees, never to be found, Captain Kidd's great treasure lies buried in the ground. Now listen to my tale, boys, and gather close around, for if it's gold you're looking for, I'll tell you where it's found. Far beneath the turf it lies, Oak Island where it's hid, buried many years ago by Captain William Kidd. Captain Kidd, a treasure he did hide. Many men have searched before and many men have died. Captain Kidd, a treasure he did hide. Many men have searched before and many men have died. While standing on the gallows, these last words Kidd did say, if I had my freedom, this price to you I'd pay. I'd give you all my plunder, it's buried in the ground, enough to make a chain of gold around all London town. The rope was placed around his neck, he would no more set sail, nor set his foot upon the deck, or lean across the rail. His secret he took with him as they watched him choke. That's why they'll search forever on that island known as Oak. Captain Kidd, a treasure he did hide. Many men have searched before and many men have died. Captain Kidd, a treasure he did hide. They say many men have searched before and many men have died. And one more man will die. Maybe we could stay forever close in our hearts. It was so easy as a child. Now I'm older and I feel more apart. I know the life we had will never fade away. And now the time has come to wipe the tears away, because we'll always be together. Just you wait and see. I'll still be there with you and you'll be here with me. No matter what we say or do, no matter where we are, love you, and you'll always be my star.
We just heard My Star, and starting off that 2-song folk set, Captain Kidd. Those 2 tracks are from folk artist Kendall Partington off of his current record, Milestones. For all things Partington, kendallpartington.ca. Don't forget to keep up to date with all things country, Rainbow Country. Follow me on socials at Mark Tara Music. Would you like to be a guest on Rainbow Country in 2021? Well, get in touch. send me an email, mark@marktara.com. The podcast for Rainbow Country is available on all major platforms. The official Rainbow Country playlist is out on Spotify, and everything is hooked up at marktara.com. Finally, I want to take this time to thank you for taking your time to be with me on this very first episode of 2021. Remember, be well, be strong, be safe.
Hi, this is Emily Saliers from Indigo Girls, and you're listening to Rainbow Country.